Welcome back, everybody. My name is Tom Olsen. The name of the show is Olsen on Law, every Saturday at 11 right here on News Talk WDBO. And I want to bring on attorney Riley Allen. He represented a client in an important case that went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, and in doing so confirmed and clarified new law that will benefit the U.S., us taxpayers. Riley's client, Susan, worked for Blackstone Medical, which makes medical implants and surgery products. When Susan saw that Blackstone was paying illegal kickbacks to spinal physicians to use its products, she filed a whistleblower lawsuit against the company. The U.S. joined in because the illegal kickbacks to doctors led to false claims being submitted to Medicaid and Medicare. As part of the settlement, Blackstone agreed to pay $30 million to the federal government. Hello, Riley.
Good morning, Tom. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for coming on the show. So tell our listeners a little bit about the case and why this is so important to us.
Well, I first want to echo the comments you made about the tragedy in Connecticut yesterday. You know, our thoughts and prayers are also with those children and their families. But where Susan Hutchison is concerned, she was employed by Blackstone as a regional manager, and in her position, she discovered that Blackstone had created a fraudulent medical advisory board, that it had engaged in fake research studies, that it had provided lavish gifts to physicians, all to incentivize them to use the Blackstone spinal product and to incentivize them to perform surgeries on patients where arguably many of those surgeries were not even necessary. So when she discovered that, she took it to her supervisors and managers and the owners of the company, and she said, you know, that's not lawful or legal. It violates the kickback statute, and it has the impact of resulting in claims being submitted to the government for reimbursement that have a fraudulent component to them. And when she tried to get that corrected through her employer, they responded by firing her. So as a result of her being fired, she came to us, and in conjunction with some very good lawyers who are good friends of mine, named Rick Morgan and Jennifer Verkamp from Ohio, we pursued the claim against Blackstone. And we were fortunate enough to ultimately get the government to participate and to have Blackstone held accountable to pay a fairly substantial amount of money to teach it a lesson to not engage in this type of conduct.
And the important part about this case going to the U.S. Supreme Court is that Medicare and Medicaid, in a sense, were ripped off directly by the doctors who were sending the bills to Medicare and Medicaid, and yet the hospitals themselves did not do anything wrong. And that's why it's important that the case allows the government to go beyond the hospital and pursue the chain that this came through. Is that right?
Well, that's pretty accurate. I mean, the problem in the past, Medicare is divided into two primary parts. Part A that provides for the payment of federal funds for hospitalization and post-hospitalization care, and then Part B that authorizes the payment of federal funds for medical and other health services, including physician services. So what happened here, the doctors are being illegally paid, and on average about $6,000 to $8,000 per month. Some of them were paid far more than that, and some of them had gifts that were lavished upon them that were perverse, including, for example, sending a neurosurgeon to Thailand so that he could have his way with young girls. That's how egregious the conduct was. But what would happen is that the doctor was being paid, and the doctor, for example, would perform a surgery at the hospital. Well, the hospital would submit its bill for reimbursement to Medicare, and the hospital didn't know the doctor was being paid in most circumstances and did not know there was that fraudulent component to the entire process. So when the surgery bill was submitted, the hospital was doing it innocently, and arguably the surgery amount in terms of dollars couldn't be directly linked to the fact that the doctor was being paid. In other words, the question is whether the amount it cost for the surgery was linked directly to what the doctor was being paid. What happened, the case went on appeal to the First Circuit Court of Appeals in Boston, and the Circuit Court of Appeals in Boston said that we can look downstream and we can see who's perpetrating the fraud downstream, and we can hold accountable those involved in the process downstream who help to perpetrate the fraud that ultimately results in the government reimbursing monies for people who have perpetrated fraud. And even though the hospital may have been innocent in submitting the bill to the government, those downstream were not innocent and therefore could be held accountable.
All right. Well, Riley, we've got less than a minute to go, but how many years did you pursue this case on behalf of your client?
We started in 2006.
And did you actually appear before the U.S. Supreme Court?
We did not have to appear. The court made a decision that it would not reverse the decision of the First Circuit Court of Appeals, so there wasn't oral argument before the U.S. Supreme Court. They handed down a written decision that they were not going to disturb the decision of the First Circuit Court of Appeals, and that's why it's significant.
All right. Well, Riley, thank you so much for coming on the show and for your hard work in pursuing this case on behalf of your client and on behalf of the U.S. taxpayers. We appreciate it. Again, that's Attorney Riley Allen. He is a personal injury attorney, litigation attorney right here in Orlando, Florida. Hey, folks, my name is Tom Olsen. The name of the show is Olsen on Law. You're listening to News Talk WDBO.